On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today
On
in
this
History,
day in history,
where we honor their legacies.
remarkable individuals
From
who
artists
shaped our
to
world.
leaders, their
Welcome
impact
to
lives
Who
on.
Died Today
On
in
this
History,
day in
where
history,
we
their
honor
stories
their
and
legacies.
meaningful.
Remarkable
Like,
individuals
subscribe,
who shaped our
and hit the
world.
bell to stay
Their
connected.
impact to
Valerie
Who Died
Mahaffey,
Today
on
in
this day,
History,
the Emmy-winning
where we
actress
honor their
celebrated for her
legacies.
distinctive
Remarkable
portrayals of
individuals
eccentric and
who
complex
shaped our
characters, passed away at the age of 71,
Welcome
following a brief
to
battle
Valerie
with
Mahaffey.
cancer.
On this
Her death was confirmed by her husband, actor Joseph Kell, who described her as one of America's most endearing actresses. Born in Sumatra, Indonesia, in 1953, Mahaffey moved to the United States during her adolescence and later graduated from the University of Texas at Austin. She launched her career on Broadway before transitioning to television, where she became known for her versatility and unique comedic timing. Her portrayal of Eve in Northern Exposure earned her a Primetime Emmy Award in 1992. Mahaffey's extensive television career included roles in Desperate Housewives, Young Sheldon, Big Sky, and Dead to Me, among others. She also appeared in films such as French Exit, for which she received an Independent Spirit Award nomination, Seabiscuit, and Sully. Mahaffey's passing reflects the challenges faced by character actors in the entertainment industry, where consistent excellence often goes unheralded. Despite her critical acclaim, she remained relatively under the radar, embodying the resilience and dedication of artists who contribute significantly to their craft without widespread recognition. Her death prompted an outpouring of tributes from fans and colleagues, highlighting her impact on television and film. In death, Mahaffey's legacy has been amplified, with renewed appreciation for her contributions to the arts. Her performances continue to resonate, serving as a testament to her talent and the depth she brought to her roles. Through streaming platforms and ongoing discussions about her work, Mahaffey's influence endures, ensuring that her contributions to the entertainment industry are not forgotten. Valerie Mahaffey's life and career underscore the importance of recognizing and celebrating the artists who enrich our cultural landscape through their dedication and artistry. Her legacy serves as a reminder of the enduring impact of nuanced and heartfelt performances. Helen Keller passed away peacefully in her sleep on June 1, 1968, at the age of 87. Her death was due to natural causes, following a series of strokes she had suffered in the years leading up to her passing. Keller died in her home in Easton, Connecticut, surrounded by a sense of quiet reverence befitting a life of extraordinary resilience and advocacy. The calm nature of her passing stood in stark contrast to the turbulent challenges she overcame in life. Deaf and blind from the age of 19 months, Keller became one of the most inspiring figures of the 20th century. Her death marked the end of an era shaped by tremendous social and political change. Keller had lived through 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and the Civil Rights Movement, all while championing causes including disability rights, women's suffrage, pacifism, and workers' rights. Her passing was not met with mass public mourning on the scale of a political leader's death, but it was deeply felt by those in the spheres of education, advocacy, and social reform. Institutions like the American Foundation for the Blind, where she had worked for decades, issued tributes recognizing her as a revolutionary figure who transformed how society viewed disability and potential. In the immediate aftermath of her death, there was renewed global interest in her life, particularly through re-airings of The Miracle Worker, the dramatization of her early life and education with her teacher Anne Sullivan. Her legend grew not through tragedy or violent end, but through the enduring example of her perseverance. Keller became an icon of hope, and her death only amplified her symbolic status. Her life and death force us to confront mortality not as a limitation, but as a canvas upon which human determination can etch meaning. She left behind a legacy not rooted in conquest or political power, but in intellect, compassion, and advocacy. Her story is immortalized through countless biographies, plays, films, and educational institutions bearing her name. Helen Keller's death reminds us that influence is not always loud or forceful. It can be patient, enduring, and quietly revolutionary. In remembering her, we honor the belief that barriers are not destiny, and that memory has the power to shape not just how we view the past, but how we imagine what is possible for the future. James Buchanan, the 15th President of the United States, died of natural causes on June 1, 1868, at the age of 77, at his home in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. His passing occurred in the fragile years following the American Civil War, a conflict his presidency is often blamed for failing to prevent. His death, while peaceful, symbolized the final closing of a deeply contentious chapter in American leadership. Buchanan's presidency, 1857 to 1861, was marred by rising sectional tensions over slavery, and his inability, or unwillingness, to act decisively against Southern secession would later stain his legacy. He left office just before Abraham Lincoln took the helm, and within months, the nation erupted into civil war. His death, 7 years after the war's end, did not stir national mourning. Unlike Lincoln, who was revered as a martyr, Buchanan passed quietly and somewhat ignobly, his reputation already in steep decline. His funeral was modest, attended by local citizens and family, but not marked by the grandeur afforded to other statesmen of his rank. The immediate consequence of Buchanan's death was minimal in a national sense. By 1868, the country had begun the arduous process of Reconstruction, and Buchanan's role in history was already largely cemented as one of passivity in a time of crisis. He published a memoir, Mr. Buchanan's Administration on the Eve of the Rebellion, to defend his record, but it did little to rehabilitate his public image. Buchanan's death, like his presidency, reflects the dangers of indecision during turbulent times. He was a product of an era where political compromise often prioritized short-term unity over moral clarity, a stance that ultimately failed to prevent the national rupture he hoped to avoid. His legacy became a cautionary tale of leadership marked more by fear of conflict than resolve to confront it. Over time, Buchanan has been remembered more in historical critique than in celebration. Rarely immortalized in grand art or literature, his name is more often invoked in discussions of presidential failure. Yet, even in infamy, his life contributes to the complex tapestry of American memory. His death and its muted reception underscore how history tends to revere those who act with conviction in moments of crisis, and quietly shelve those who do not. In this, Buchanan's legacy offers a somber meditation on leadership, responsibility, and how history chooses to remember. Philippe Leroy, the French actor known for his piercing gaze and dignified presence, died of natural causes on February 1, 2024, at the age of 93. His passing marked the end of an era that bridged mid-20th century European cinema and its evolution into more globally connected storytelling. A veteran of over 150 films and television projects, Leroy's death invited reflection on the value of quiet resilience and the enduring nature of artistic legacy. Leroy's career began in the early 1960s after serving in the French Foreign Legion, and he quickly became a symbol of disciplined masculinity. Best known internationally for his role in The Night Porter, 1974, and beloved in Italy for portraying Leonardo da Vinci in the long-running series La Vita di Leonardo, Leroy's persona embodied a European ideal of introspective strength. His death, while devoid of scandal or dramatic flourish, echoed the quiet grace with which he approached both life and craft, a trait that increasingly stood in contrast to the spectacle-driven celebrity culture of the 21st century. The immediate consequences of his passing were subtle but significant. Tributes poured in from across Europe, particularly from Italian and French institutions that recognized him not just as a performer, but as a cultural bridge between nations. His death also rekindled public interest in post-war European cinema and the role it played in redefining national identities, masculinity, and artistic ambition in a world scarred by conflict. Unlike figures whose deaths are catalytic or tragic, Leroy's legacy was amplified not by the circumstances of his passing, but by the quiet consistency of his work. His death invited re-evaluation of the kind of heroism that does not roar, but endures, of lives defined not by a single climactic act, but by decades of artistic integrity. In remembering Philippe Leroy, we glimpse humanity's deeper relationship with mortality and memory. Not every historical figure reshapes the world through revolution or tragedy. Some leave behind a more intimate legacy, one rooted in the transformative power of art. Leroy is immortalized through film and the quiet admiration of generations of actors and viewers who see in his performances the virtues of discipline, emotional restraint, and authenticity. In an age that often celebrates loud exits, Philippe Leroy reminds us that some legends are built not in fire but in devotion, brick by brick, scene by scene. Ann B. Davis, best remembered for her iconic role as the lovable housekeeper Alice Nelson on The Brady Bunch, died on June 1, 2014, at the age of 88. Her death was the result of a fall that led to a traumatic head injury, and she passed away peacefully in a hospital in San Antonio, Texas. The nature of her passing, sudden yet not violent, stood in contrast to the vibrant energy she brought to her roles, reminding fans that even the most cheerful television personas are subject to the quiet frailty of real life. Davis's death reflected the generational shift away from the golden age of network television toward the fragmented digital landscape of the 21st century. As someone who rose to fame in the era when television was a unifying cultural force, her passing evoked nostalgia for a time when family shows like The Brady Bunch offered a shared national experience. In a world now driven by streaming platforms and targeted content, Davis symbolized a bygone era of wholesome entertainment that promoted unity, humor, and stability during the social upheavals of the 1960s and 70s. The immediate consequence of her death was a wave of tributes from fans and colleagues alike, celebrating her not only as a talented actress, but as a grounding presence in American pop culture. Her character Alice was more than just a housekeeper. She was a confidant, problem solver, and comic relief, representing the often invisible labor and emotional care provided by women in both fictional and real households. Davis's performance carved a space for such figures to be seen and appreciated in a time when domestic roles were being redefined by feminism and shifting family dynamics. Her death didn't radically shift historical currents, but it did reinforce her status as a cultural icon. In remembering Ann B. Davis, we are reminded of the way seemingly modest figures can leave profound imprints on collective memory. Through reruns, pop culture references, and affectionate parodies, her image continues to resonate. Ultimately, Davis's life and death highlight how memory and mortality intertwine. We immortalize figures like her not through grand monuments, but through laughter, nostalgia, and the enduring stories we tell. In this way, her legacy endures not just on screen, but in the emotional fabric of generations who grew up with Alice's warm, knowing smile. Rocío Jurado, often called La Más Grande, the greatest, was a Spanish singer and actress whose death on June 1, 2006, from pancreatic cancer, marked the end of an era in Spanish popular culture. She died at her home in Madrid, surrounded by family, following a long and public battle with illness. Her passing was natural, yet the profound emotional response it stirred in Spain reflected the powerful cultural role she had played for decades. Jurado rose to fame during the final years of Francisco Franco's regime and became a symbol of Spain's evolving identity during the democratic transition that followed. Her powerful voice and commanding stage presence blended traditional flamenco roots with modern pop balladry, resonating deeply across generations. In this sense, her death symbolized more than the loss of a beloved artist. It was a poignant reminder of a cultural bridge between a conservative, repressive past and a more open, expressive present. The immediate aftermath of her death saw an outpouring of national grief. Her funeral, held in the Andalusian city of Chipiona, drew thousands of mourners, and the Spanish government declared an official day of mourning. Television networks aired retrospectives of her career, while political leaders, entertainers, and everyday citizens alike paid tribute to her artistry and resilience. Her death amplified her legend, not just as a performer, but as a dignified woman who carried the emotional burdens of her personal battles with grace under public scrutiny. Jurado's legacy endures not just through her music, but in the way she embodied emotional expression, strength, and pride in cultural identity. Statues, tribute concerts, and biographical works have kept her memory alive, while younger generations of artists continue to cite her as a source of inspiration. In death, as in life, she remains a powerful symbol of the enduring link between national identity and artistic expression. Her story illustrates how society venerates those who capture its collective heart, especially when they transcend mere celebrity to become cultural icons. In remembering Rocío Jurado, we confront the universal truth of mortality while also affirming the human drive to preserve memory through performance, ritual, and reverence. Her voice may have been silenced, but its echo still rings through the emotional landscape of Spanish music and memory. Mary Kornman, a beloved child actress of the silent film era, passed away from cancer on June 1, 1973 in California. Her death was natural, occurring in an era that was just beginning to appreciate the cultural contributions of early Hollywood stars. As the leading lady of the original Our Gang comedies in the 1920s, Kornman captured the hearts of audiences with her charm and comedic timing, becoming one of the most recognizable child stars of her generation. Her death marked the passing of a significant link to the origins of American cinematic storytelling. In the context of the 1970s, a period marked by social transformation and a growing nostalgia for the simpler, more innocent representations of earlier decades, Kornman's death served as a quiet reminder of a bygone era. While not as widely publicized as the deaths of major Hollywood icons, her passing was deeply felt by film historians and fans of classic cinema, who recognized her as a pioneer in children's entertainment. Kornman's career unfolded during a time when the film industry was still experimenting with format and structure, and her roles reflected the era's fascination with youth, mischief, and the wholesome ideal of childhood. In many ways, her early retirement from acting paralleled the transient nature of child stardom in early Hollywood, an industry that often celebrated innocence but offered little protection for those who embodied it. The immediate consequences of her death did not cause shockwaves in a national sense, but they did rekindle interest in the legacy of the Our Gang series, prompting retrospectives and renewed discussions about the impact of child performers on American culture. Over time, her memory has been preserved through archives, film festivals, and scholarly works examining early cinema and its cultural effects. Mary Kornman's life and death speak to the ephemeral nature of fame, particularly for child actors whose youthful personas are immortalized on screen, while their adult lives often unfold in obscurity. Yet through restored films, fan communities, and historical analysis, Kornman remains a symbol of a formative chapter in Hollywood's history. Her enduring presence in the collective memory demonstrates how society seeks to preserve not just the accomplishments, but the innocence and wonder of those who once lit up the screen during cinema's earliest days. Cynthia Weil, one half of one of the most successful songwriting duos in American music history, passed away on June 1, 2023, at the age of 82. Her death was of natural causes, marking the end of an era in pop music shaped profoundly by her lyrical sensitivity and insight. As a lyricist alongside her husband Barry Mann, Weil crafted timeless hits that became the soundtrack of several generations, including You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin', On Broadway, and We Gotta Get Out of This Place. Weil's passing reflected a generational shift in American culture, the slow fading of the Brill-building era when songwriters worked behind the scenes to create pop masterpieces that expressed the hopes, frustrations, and dreams of a rapidly evolving society. Her career blossomed during the 1960s, a time marked by both upheaval and innovation. The songs she co-wrote often mirrored the mood of the times, balancing commercial appeal with emotional depth and social awareness. Her death underscored the waning presence of those original voices that once defined an entire chapter of American musical expression. The immediate consequences of her death included an outpouring of tributes from artists and fans who recognized her lyrical genius and its lasting influence. Her passing reawakened interest in the craftsmanship of songwriting and spotlighted the often overlooked lyricists whose words gave shape to the emotions of millions. For many, it was a moment to reevaluate the critical role of female creators in an industry long dominated by male figures. Cynthia Weil's death did not so much shift the trajectory of history as it did highlight the enduring power of art to transcend generations. Her lyrics, rooted in universal themes of love, longing, and identity, remain as relevant today as when they were first penned. Weil's work is immortalized not only through recordings and performances, but also through Broadway musicals such as Beautiful, the Carole King musical, which celebrates the broader Brill-building legacy and her role within it. In her passing, we are reminded that mortality, while inevitable, cannot silence voices that have resonated deeply through art. Cynthia Weil's words continue to echo in concert halls, radio waves, and personal memories, testaments to how deeply creativity can intertwine with cultural memory and human emotion. Eddie Clearwater, known affectionately as the Chief, passed away from heart failure on June 1, 2018, at the age of 83. A flamboyant and passionate figure in the world of blues music, Clearwater's death was a natural one, yet it marked the close of a chapter for Chicago blues, a genre he helped preserve and energize for over half a century. With his signature headdress and infectious showmanship, Clearwater stood as a bridge between traditional Delta blues and modern rock-influenced electric blues, embodying both continuity and innovation. Born in Mississippi and raised in the Deep South before relocating to Chicago, Clearwater was part of the Great Migration of African Americans who brought the blues north, transforming it into a powerful expression of urban Black identity. His death reflected not only the passing of an individual, but the gradual fading of a generation that lived through segregation, struggle, and the civil rights movement, using music as a tool for resilience and identity. Clearwater, a left-handed guitarist playing a right-handed guitar upside down, was emblematic of creative defiance in a society that too often tried to define limits for people like him. The immediate consequence of his passing was a surge of tributes from blues musicians and aficionados, acknowledging his role in keeping the spirit of authentic blues alive. His death didn't alter history's course in a grand political sense, but it amplified his legend among musicians and fans, reaffirming his place in the pantheon of blues greats. In many ways, Clearwater's passing reminded the world that cultural legacies are fragile and must be nurtured through remembrance and revival. Clearwater's death, like his life, tells us about humanity's enduring relationship with power and memory, how the marginalized can leave indelible marks on the soul of a nation through art. His music was his resistance, his celebration, and his heritage. Today, he is immortalized through his recordings, tributes at blues festivals, and commemorative features that highlight his contribution to American music history. In remembering Eddie Clearwater, we honor not just a man, but an era of soulful storytelling and emotional truth that the blues uniquely capture. Through rhythm and lyric, his legacy continues, resonating each time a guitar riff cries out in a smoky club or across a festival stage, echoing the voice of a true chief. On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. John Brenkus, the Emmy-winning host and co-creator of ESPN's Sports Science, passed away at the age of 54 after a battle with depression. His death, confirmed by his family, has prompted an outpouring of tributes from the sports and media communities, highlighting both his professional achievements and his candidness about mental health struggles. Brenkus was renowned for bringing scientific analysis to sports entertainment, demystifying athletic performance through technology and experimentation. His work on sports science earned 6 Emmy Awards and captivated audiences by exploring the physics and biomechanics behind athletic feats. Beyond television, he founded Base Productions and Brinks TV, further cementing his role as a pioneer in sports media. His passing underscores the often overlooked mental health challenges faced by public figures. Despite his success, Brenkus openly discussed his struggles with depression, aiming to destigmatize mental illness and encourage others to seek help. His death serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of mental health awareness and support. The immediate aftermath of his death saw a wave of condolences from colleagues, athletes, and fans, reflecting his impact on both the industry and individuals. His legacy continues through his innovative contributions to sports media and his advocacy for mental health, inspiring ongoing conversations about the intersection of success, vulnerability, and well-being. In remembering John Brenkus, we honor a visionary who transformed the way we understand sports and highlighted the human aspects behind athletic excellence. His work and openness about personal struggles leave an enduring influence on both media and mental health discourse. Janice Page, the effervescent actress and singer whose career spanned film, Broadway, and television, passed away of natural causes on June 2, 2024, at the age of 101. Her death marked the end of an era that celebrated glamour, resilience, and versatility in the golden age of Hollywood and post-war American entertainment. Living over a century, Page bore witness to and participated in some of the most transformative moments in 20th century show business. Born in 1922, Page emerged from the shadows of the Great Depression and World War II with an irrepressible charm and vivacity that made her a favorite on stage and screen. Her passing was serene, befitting a woman whose career was marked by grace, determination, and an abiding optimism, even in the face of industry upheaval. In many ways, her longevity and natural death were themselves emblematic of a bygone generation of entertainers who weathered fame without the destructive trappings that consumed many of their peers. The immediate response to her death included heartfelt tributes from colleagues and fans who remembered her for iconic roles in musicals like The Pajama Game and appearances in television staples such as All in the Family. While her passing did not shift the historical trajectory of entertainment in the way a tragedy might, it offered a moment of reflection, a final curtain call that reminded audiences of the richness and diversity of mid-century American performing arts. Page's death highlighted the values of her era: resilience in post-war America, the embrace of female talent in evolving roles, and the shifting image of women in media. Her career bridged the studio system and the modern age of television, marking a cultural shift where entertainment became increasingly accessible and female performers claimed greater creative control. In remembering Janice Page, we engage with broader themes of how society commemorates talent and grace that endure beyond the spotlight. Through film archives, Broadway revivals, and retrospective tributes, we keep her memory alive, a testament to the way art immortalizes the individual. Her life and gentle passing remind us that while fame may fade, legacy, especially one built on authenticity and resilience, endures. In honoring figures like Page, we reaffirm our collective respect for artistry, perseverance, and the quiet dignity with which some lives come to a close. Imogene Coca, a pioneering comedian best known for her work in early television sketch comedy, passed away from natural causes on June 2, 2001, at the age of 92. Her death marked the quiet close of a career that had helped define American television comedy during its formative years. As one of the first female comedians to find national fame in the early 1950s, Coca's passing was not merely the loss of a beloved performer, but a moment of historical resonance, a reminder of the foundational role she played in shaping an entire genre. Coca rose to prominence with Your Show of Shows, a live television variety program that aired from 1950 to 1954, co-starring Sid Caesar. Her unique brand of physical comedy, expressive face, and impeccable timing made her a standout in a male-dominated field. The fact that she lived and died of natural causes, largely out of the public spotlight in her later years, is perhaps a reflection of her era's understated grace. Unlike the sensationalized or tragic ends that many entertainers of later decades suffered, Coca's death felt in harmony with her persona, sincere, enduring, and quietly brilliant. The immediate consequence of her death was a wave of tributes from comedians, actors, and television historians. She was remembered as a trailblazer whose influence could be traced in generations of female comedians, from Carol Burnett to Tina Fey. Though her passing did not provoke political upheaval or societal shockwaves, it prompted reflection on the evolution of American comedy and the vital role of women in its development. Coca's death, while peaceful, illuminated enduring questions about visibility and recognition in entertainment. Her career success occurred during an era when live television was a communal event, bringing families together around a single screen. Yet despite her enormous influence, she often remained in the shadow of male counterparts in historical accounts. Her legacy challenges us to reevaluate who gets remembered and why, a recurring theme in how societies choose to commemorate their cultural architects. We remember Imogene Coca through archival footage, biographies, and the comedians she inspired. Her legacy lives on in the laughter she evoked and the barriers she helped break. Her story reminds us that while fame may flicker, influence, especially when grounded in authenticity and courage, endures across generations. Wes Unseld, one of basketball's most respected figures, passed away from health complications, including pneumonia, on June 2, 2020, at the age of 74. His death marked the loss of a towering presence in the world of professional sports, not just for his physical stature, but for the integrity and leadership he brought to the game both on and off the court. In many ways, the quiet dignity of Unseld's passing reflected the very qualities he championed throughout his life during an era of evolving racial identity, social change, and athletic professionalism. Unseld's career began at a time when the NBA was emerging from the shadows of social upheaval in the United States. As an African-American athlete coming into prominence during the civil rights era, Unseld's calm strength and unflinching work ethic made him a model of professionalism. He was only the second player in NBA history to win Rookie of the Year and Most Valuable Player in the same season, and later led the Washington Bullets to their only championship in 1978. His retirement from playing did not end his influence. He became a coach and then executive, helping shape the team for decades. His death came in a moment of national reflection on racial justice in 2020, and while not violent or unexpected, it added to the collective mourning for Black icons whose legacies shaped American culture and identity. The immediate response to Unseld's passing was one of reverence. Fellow athletes, coaches, and fans remembered him not only for his powerful rebounding and outlet passes, but for his humility, mentorship, and leadership. While Unseld's death did not shift global political tides, it deepened appreciation for those who lead with quiet strength rather than flamboyance. His story became part of a larger narrative about the overlooked heroes, individuals whose impact is profound, but whose style defies the sensational. In memorials and tributes, Wes Unseld's legacy is immortalized through halls of fame, the continued respect of the basketball community, and the values he upheld. His death, like his life, reminds us that influence is not always loud. It can be steady, principled, and enduring. Through sport, we find reflections of society, and in figures like Unseld, we see the potential for character to outlast even the brightest spotlight. Bo Diddley, born Elas Othabates, passed away on June 2, 2008, at the age of 79, following heart failure. His death was the natural conclusion of a long and groundbreaking life, one that helped shape the foundations of modern rock and roll. While he didn't die in a moment of public spectacle or historical rupture, his passing marked the end of an era, a reminder of how revolutionary cultural figures leave indelible marks, not through violence or politics, but through rhythm, innovation, and audacity. Bo Diddley emerged in the 1950s with a sound that defied traditional structure. His famous Bo Diddley beat, a syncopated rhythm rooted in African musical traditions, was infectious and foundational. It would go on to influence generations of artists, from Elvis Presley and Buddy Holly to the Rolling Stones and Jimi Hendrix. In an era when African American musicians faced systemic racism and marginalization, Diddley's confidence, originality, and genre-defying performances stood as acts of cultural resistance. His rectangular guitar, swaggering style, and lyrical bravado reflected the growing assertion of Black identity and creativity in mid-20th century America. The immediate consequence of his passing was a surge of recognition and tributes. Musicians and fans alike celebrated his legacy with renewed interest in his discography and life story. Though he had long been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and honored with various Lifetime Achievement Awards, his death prompted a collective reflection on just how deeply his fingerprints were embedded in the DNA of popular music. Bo Diddley's death didn't shift the course of history in the way a political assassination might, but it deepened the understanding of music as a transformative force in cultural and social identity. It reminded the world that legends are not only forged in battlefields or palaces, but in recording studios, garages, and smoky clubs. In the years since, Diddley has been immortalized through music documentaries, tributes at award shows, and scholarly works on rock history. Murals, concerts, and even rhythm patterns in songs continue to echo his influence. His passing teaches us that mortality cannot silence innovation, and that through rhythm, artists can inscribe themselves into the memory of the world. Bo Diddley didn't just make music, he changed its heartbeat. Richard Dawson, beloved game show host and actor, passed away on June 2, 2012, at the age of 79 from complications related to esophageal cancer. His death, though natural, symbolized the end of a distinct chapter in American television history. Dawson was not just a host, he was a personality who bridged generations, brought levity into American living rooms, and reflected both the charm and the social limitations of his time. Born in England, Dawson rose to prominence in the United States through his role on the popular sitcom Hogan's Heroes. But it was as the original host of Family Feud that he became a household name. Known for his wit, flirtatious demeanor, and the signature kisses he gave female contestants, an act viewed as affectionate in his time but now often reassessed through modern lenses, Dawson embodied a cultural moment when television was rapidly becoming a dominant force in shaping societal norms and entertainment values. His passing in 2012 did not trigger national upheaval, but it did prompt widespread nostalgia and tributes from fans and media outlets who recognized his contributions to game show culture. It also sparked discussions about how entertainment evolves with society. Dawson's style, once iconic, is now viewed with both fondness and critical reflection. His death encouraged a re-evaluation of television's role in reinforcing or challenging cultural attitudes, especially regarding gender roles and public decorum. Dawson's legacy was further amplified by his role as the sinister host Damon Killian in the 1987 dystopian film The Running Man, a chilling parody of media sensationalism. This performance, in hindsight, provided a satirical counterpoint to his real-life persona, underlining the dual power of television as both a tool of unity and a potential vehicle for manipulation. In death, Dawson joined the pantheon of entertainers whose work is immortalized through reruns, digital archives, and pop culture references. His career serves as a reminder of the ephemeral nature of fame and the enduring impact of personality. Like many media figures, he is remembered not just for what he did, but how he made people feel, comforted, amused, and, above all, connected. Ultimately, Dawson's passing highlights our enduring need to memorialize figures who shape our shared cultural experiences. Through laughter, charisma, and the glowing box in our living rooms, Richard Dawson left a mark that continues to resonate in the echoes of TV's golden age. Katherine Joosten, the Emmy-winning actress best known for her roles in The West Wing and Desperate Housewives, passed away on June 2, 2012, at the age of 72 after a long battle with lung cancer. Her death was natural, but it mirrored both a personal and societal confrontation with mortality, perseverance, and the pursuit of purpose later in life. Joosten's passing resonated deeply with fans not only because of her talent, but also because her most iconic role, Karen McCluskey on Desperate Housewives, paralleled her real-life struggles with cancer. The timing was poignant. Her character also died of cancer in the series finale, which aired just weeks before her own death. This convergence of fiction and reality cast a reflective light on how television artfully mirrors life's inevitable end, and how it can be used to explore and soften the experience of loss. Her death did not cause a seismic shift in history, but it amplified her legend as an emblem of late-blooming success and resilience. Joosten didn't begin her acting career until her 40s, after working as a nurse and raising 2 children. Her success in Hollywood during a time when older women were, and often still are, marginalized in the industry, challenged ageist norms and inspired many to pursue their dreams regardless of timing. She was a reminder that one's value is not diminished by age, and that meaningful work and recognition can come at any point in life. Joosten was also a vocal anti-smoking advocate, having quit smoking decades before being diagnosed with lung cancer. Her advocacy, both during her life and posthumously, brought attention to the disease and helped destigmatize conversations about health, aging, and death in public discourse. In remembering Katherine Joosten, society doesn't just recall a sharp-tongued neighbor or a lovable White House secretary. We remember a woman who embodied tenacity, humor, and grace. She has been honored through tributes from fans, actors, and cancer advocacy groups, and her roles continue to resonate through reruns and streaming platforms. Her death underscores humanity's complex relationship with mortality, a mix of fear, defiance, and eventual acceptance. Through her work and the stories she helped tell, Joustin is immortalized, a lasting presence in the cultural tapestry that both mourns and celebrates those who leave us with more than memories. They leave us with meaning. Peter Sallis, the beloved English actor best known for voicing Wallace in the iconic Wallace and Gromit animated series and portraying Norman Clegg in Last of the Summer Wine, passed away peacefully of natural causes on June 2, 2017, at the age of 96. His long life and gentle death stood in contrast to the turbulent eras he lived through: World War II, the post-war transformation of British society, and the evolution of television and film into global storytelling mediums. Sallis's passing marked the end of an era for British television comedy. Last of the Summer Wine, in which he starred for all 37 seasons, remains the longest-running sitcom in the world. His quiet, understated performance as Norman Clegg embodied the charm and wit of a generation that found humor not in spectacle, but in the subtleties of everyday life. His death was mourned across the United Kingdom, where he had become a fixture in homes for decades, his voice and expressions evoking a sense of familiarity and comfort. Perhaps even more internationally significant was his work as Wallace, the eccentric inventor in Aardman Animation's Wallace and Gromit series. Sallis's voice, distinctive, warm, and whimsical, became the soul of a character cherished by children and adults alike. These short films, blending traditional stop-motion techniques with contemporary humor, reflected the postmodern British values of creativity, modesty, and innovation. His contribution helped make Wallace and Gromit a cultural touchstone, even earning the franchise multiple Academy Awards. The immediate consequence of his death was a deep sense of cultural nostalgia and reflection. His passing did not shift global history, but it did remind audiences of the quiet brilliance of character actors, those who, without scandal or grandeur, shaped the soul of popular media. Peter Sallis's legacy continues through the enduring popularity of his work. He is immortalized not through statues or political memorials, but through film, television, and the unmistakable sound of Wallace asking for a bit of Wensleydale. His death invites contemplation of how individuals can shape memory and meaning not through domination or drama, but through consistency, kindness, and craft. In the grand human narrative of mortality and memory, Sallis's life reminds us that gentleness too can be legendary. We honor such figures by continuing to share their stories, laugh at their lines, and remember the warmth they brought into the world. Mel Ferrer, an American actor, director, and producer, passed away from natural causes on June 2, 2008, at the age of 90. His death marked the quiet end of a career that had spanned over 5 decades and touched multiple facets of mid-20th century Hollywood and European cinema. Ferrer, often overshadowed by his famed marriage to Audrey Hepburn, was a significant figure in his own right, embodying the cultural shifts and cinematic transformations of his era. Born into a well-off New York family in 1917, Ferrer came of age during the Great Depression and World War II, an era that saw entertainment become a tool of both escapism and cultural cohesion. His early career reflected the artistic ambition of post-war Hollywood, and his most celebrated role in Lily portrayed a gentle, emotionally complex puppeteer, signaling a departure from more rigid masculine archetypes of previous decades. His involvement in directing films like Green Mansions and producing the acclaimed Wait Until Dark, 1967, with Hepburn showed a man deeply invested in the evolving language of film and performance. The circumstances of Ferrer's death, peaceful, private, and without spectacle, reflected a humility consistent with the less bombastic era of stardom from which he came. Unlike the sudden dramatic losses that often surround celebrities, Ferrer's passing was a whisper rather than a roar. Yet in that quiet departure lay a reflection of values cherished in his time: dignity, craftsmanship, and the enduring power of understated talent. His death did not trigger major historical ripples, but it did prompt reflection among film historians and classic cinema enthusiasts. It served as a gentle reminder of a bygone era of Hollywood, one where stars were often as known for their artistic contributions as for their personal lives. Ferrer's passing, especially in light of his collaborative work with Hepburn, stirred renewed interest in mid-century cinema and the subtleties of cross-cultural storytelling. In remembering Mel Ferrer, we witness the broader human yearning to honor those who shaped our cultural imagination. Through retrospectives, restored films, and biographical tributes, his legacy lives on, not in grand monuments but in reels of film, moments of dialogue, and the nostalgia of black and white elegance. His death, like his life, invites us to consider how art sustains memory and how even quieter lives can cast long, enduring shadows. On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Muhammad Ali, one of the most iconic sports figures of the 20th century, died of septic shock on June 3, 2016, at the age of 74, following a long battle with Parkinson's disease. His death, though not sudden, reverberated around the world, bringing a reflective pause to consider the life of a man who transcended boxing to become a global symbol of courage, conviction, and change. Ali's death from natural causes, complicated by decades of illness, mirrored both the physical toll of a brutal sport and the enduring fight of a man who refused to be silenced, whether by opponents in the ring or institutions outside of it. Diagnosed with Parkinson's in 1984, just 3 years after his retirement, Ali lived much of his post-boxing life as a quiet warrior, still appearing publicly when his body allowed, from lighting the Olympic flame in Atlanta in 1996 to advocating for humanitarian causes. His physical decline, juxtaposed with his larger-than-life legacy, illustrated the inevitable human struggle against time, even for those once deemed invincible. The immediate aftermath of Ali's passing was a global outpouring of grief and reverence. Leaders, athletes, and citizens from every corner of the world paid tribute to the greatest. His funeral in Louisville, Kentucky became a moment of national unity, attended by dignitaries and everyday fans alike. It was not merely the end of a sportsman's life, but the closing chapter of a transformative figure who had challenged racial inequality, opposed the Vietnam War, and embraced a new identity in his conversion to Islam. Ali's death did not shift the trajectory of history in the way a political assassination might, but it cemented his mythos. His life became a touchstone for discussions on race, religion, free speech, and resilience. In death, as in life, Ali became a vessel through which people grappled with societal values and personal integrity. We continue to immortalize Muhammad Ali through biographies, films, statues, and museum exhibits, not just as a champion in the ring, but as a champion of principles. His legacy endures because it speaks to the eternal human desire to stand for something greater than oneself. Ali showed the world that true greatness lies not only in physical strength but in moral courage, making his death a powerful moment of reflection on the nature of heroism, mortality, and memory. David Carradine, an actor whose career spanned decades and was marked by both acclaim and controversy, died on June 3, 2009, under circumstances as enigmatic as many of the roles he portrayed. Found dead in a Bangkok hotel room, Carradine's death was officially ruled accidental, resulting from autoerotic asphyxiation. The bizarre nature of his passing overshadowed much of his artistic legacy, provoking a media frenzy and public speculation. It was a deeply private moment, turned into a public spectacle, a reflection of the intrusive culture of celebrity in the 21st century. Carradine's death was emblematic of a broader cultural era that both glorifies and devours its icons. A son of the legendary John Carradine, David came to fame most notably through his role as Kwai Chang Caine in the 1970s television series Kung Fu, and later found renewed attention as the Deadly Bill in Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill films. He was known for portraying characters who bridged East and West, philosophy and violence, an embodiment of the countercultural search for spiritual identity during the 1970s. The immediate aftermath of his death was shaped more by sensational headlines than respectful remembrance. The unusual nature of his passing risked reducing his life's work to tabloid fodder. Yet, in the years since, many fans and colleagues have sought to refocus the narrative, celebrating Carradine's contributions to martial arts cinema, his eclectic artistry, and his embodiment of a generation's yearning for meaning and transcendence. Carradine's passing did not dramatically shift history, but it did spark discussions about mental health, fame, and privacy. His death invites reflection on how we, as a society, handle the frailties of those we idolize. In death, he remained a figure of contradiction, disciplined yet self-destructive, revered yet scrutinized. Ultimately, Carradine is immortalized not through the manner of his death, but through the iconic characters he brought to life. His face, voice, and presence endure in film and television. His influence echoed in generations of performers inspired by his fusion of mysticism and action. As with many complex figures, our memory of Carradine is layered, reminding us that to be human is to be imperfect, and that legacy is shaped not just by how one dies, but how one lived and connected with others through art. Franz Kafka, one of the most influential writers of the 20th century, died on June 3, 1924, at the age of 40 from complications of tuberculosis. His final months were marked by intense suffering as the disease attacked his throat, leaving him unable to eat or speak. He spent his last weeks in a sanatorium in Kirling, Austria, where he slowly succumbed to starvation. Kafka's death, like much of his writing, was steeped in themes of isolation, alienation, and bureaucratic indifference, ironically reflecting the very absurdities he so hauntingly captured in works like The Trial and The Metamorphosis. The era in which Kafka lived was one of upheaval and disillusionment. Born into a Jewish family in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, he experienced firsthand the tensions of a crumbling imperial system, the rise of industrial modernity, and deep existential uncertainties. His death did not make international headlines, nor did it immediately alter the course of history. In fact, Kafka had published little during his lifetime and had instructed his close friend and literary executor Max Brod to destroy his unpublished manuscripts. Thankfully, Brod ignored those wishes. Within years, Kafka's posthumous publications, including The Castle and The Trial, began to resonate profoundly with readers navigating the horrors of totalitarianism, war, and identity crises. Kafka's quiet, anonymous death was transformed by Brod's defiance into a turning point in literary history, eventually elevating Kafka to near mythic status as the prophet of modern anxiety. Kafka's death speaks to the broader human struggle with obscurity, legacy, and the hope for understanding. He died thinking himself a failure, unaware that his works would become essential reading for generations. The enduring power of his literature reveals a paradox. The most profound truths about society and the self often come from those who feel most powerless. We commemorate Kafka not through monuments or national holidays, but through constant reinterpretation. His name has become an adjective, Kafkaesque, a testament to how deeply his vision permeates our cultural consciousness. Literature classes, theatrical adaptations, and philosophical essays keep his legacy alive, transforming a life marked by quiet despair into an enduring commentary on the absurdities of the human condition. In Kafka's story, we find a poignant reminder. Death may be final, but the impact of a voice, especially one once silenced, can echo across centuries. Anthony Quinn, the Oscar-winning actor and global icon, died of respiratory failure on June 3, 2001, at the age of 86 in Boston, Massachusetts. Having lived a vibrant and tumultuous life, Quinn's death was a quiet conclusion to a career that had once roared across continents, cultures, and cinematic genres. His passing was natural, the result of complications from a long-standing battle with lung disease. Yet it signaled the end of an era for a generation of actors who brought raw physicality, cultural complexity, and authenticity to the screen during the golden age of Hollywood. Quinn, born in Mexico and raised in East Los Angeles, emerged as a symbol of cross-cultural expression in film. He often portrayed characters of many ethnicities, Greek, Arab, Italian, Native American, reflecting both Hollywood's lack of diversity and its hunger for Quinn's transformative ability. His death in 2001 occurred at a time when the entertainment industry was beginning to reckon with representation and the erasure of ethnic identities in casting. Quinn's legacy, built on versatility and intensity, underscored the challenges of navigating fame as an actor of color in a predominantly white industry. The immediate reaction to Quinn's death was one of reverence. Media across the globe highlighted his roles in Zorba the Greek, Lawrence of Arabia, and Viva Zapata, each of which had helped to redefine masculinity and cultural empathy on screen. While his death did not shift political tides or ignite public upheaval, it closed a chapter in Hollywood history where larger-than-life actors still bore the scars of real-world struggles: immigration, identity, and the search for belonging. Quinn's legend grew posthumously. Retrospectives, biographies, and museum exhibits highlighted not only his acting, but his work as a painter, writer, and activist. His dynamic portrayal of Zorba, dancing defiantly on the edge of tragedy, has become a lasting image of how to embrace life in all its unpredictability. His death, like his life, reminds us of mortality's universal grip, even on those who seem untouchable on screen. And yet, memory reclaims such figures. Through film festivals, archival footage, and continued academic interest, Anthony Quinn lives on, not as a myth, but as a man who, through art, embodied the full spectrum of the human experience. Jim Hines, the first man to officially break the 10-second barrier in the 100-meter dash, died on June 3, 2023 at the age of 76. His death, caused by natural causes, marked the quiet passing of a trailblazer whose impact on athletics rippled far beyond the track. Though not violent or sudden, Hines's death invited reflection on a moment of transcendence in sports history, when raw talent, determination, and racial pride converged at the height of the civil rights era. In 1968, at the Mexico City Olympics, Hines ran the 100 meters in 9.95 seconds, becoming the first athlete to do so electronically under 10 seconds. This achievement came during a time of global unrest, racial tension, and protest. The same Olympics witnessed the Black Power salute by Tommie Smith and John Carlos, a moment of political resistance against systemic racism in the United States. Hines, a black man representing his country in an era when equality was still being demanded rather than given, broke a barrier that was both athletic and symbolic. The immediate aftermath of Hines's Olympic triumph was a short-lived professional sports career, including a brief stint in the NFL. Despite his world record standing for nearly 15 years, Heinz faded from public view. His death brought renewed attention to the weight of that 1968 race, not just for its record, but for what it meant during a time when African American athletes were asserting their place not only on the podium, but in society. Heinz's death did not alter political trajectories, but it served as a poignant reminder of the quiet legends whose accomplishments speak louder over time. It revived discussions about recognition, legacy, and the fleeting nature of fame. Unlike other icons whose deaths become spectacles, Heinz's passing was understated, yet it underscored the value of looking back to honor those who shifted paradigms in their prime. Humanity's relationship with mortality often seeks meaning in milestones. In Jim Heinz, we see a man who reached the pinnacle of his sport at a turning point in American history. He is immortalized not through controversy or tragedy, but through a moment of speed, grace, and precision, captured forever in Olympic footage, athletic record books, and the collective memory of a world that still chases the limits he helped redefine. Rue McClanahan, beloved for her iconic role as Blanche Devereaux on The Golden Girls, passed away on June 3, 2010 at the age of 76 due to a stroke. Her death, while from natural causes, marked the end of an era for fans of classic television comedy and highlighted the profound cultural impact of a show that defied norms about aging, friendship, and female sexuality. McClanahan's passing came after a long career in theater and television, but it was The Golden Girls, a sitcom centered around 4 older women sharing a home in Miami, that defined her public persona. Blanche, the vivacious and flirtatious Southern belle, was a character that challenged societal perceptions of aging women. McClanahan played her with boldness and grace, offering a portrayal that was as comedic as it was empowering. Her death, coming only months after the deaths of co-stars Estelle Getty and Bea Arthur, signaled a poignant close to a groundbreaking ensemble. The immediate aftermath of her death was a wave of tributes from fans and celebrities alike, commemorating her contribution to changing television's portrayal of older women. It reignited appreciation for The Golden Girls as a show ahead of its time, tackling issues such as ageism, LGBTQ+ rights, and women's independence with humor and heart. Rue McClanahan's death didn't shift geopolitical trajectories or cultural revolutions in a dramatic sense, but it did underscore a quieter legacy, one rooted in challenging outdated stereotypes. She became a symbol of the 1980s shifting attitudes toward women and aging, at a time when mainstream media rarely gave voice to such characters. Her portrayal reflected evolving values in an era of increasing feminist consciousness. The way we remember Rue McClanahan speaks volumes about how modern culture commemorates those who have shaped its voice. She is immortalized through reruns, memes, and cultural references that keep her spirit alive for new generations. Her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the tributes at fan conventions, and the enduring popularity of The Golden Girls all serve as living testaments to her legacy. In remembering Rue McClanahan, we are reminded that power and influence aren't always loud or revolutionary. Sometimes they're gently subversive, delivered through laughter and wit, and their echoes, just like McClanahan's unmistakable charm, endure. Clarence Fountain, the founding lead singer of the iconic gospel group The Blind Boys of Alabama, passed away from natural causes on June 3, 2018, at the age of 88. His death marked the end of an era in American music, closing the chapter on one of gospel's most enduring voices. Fountain, blind from birth due to illness, was not only a musical pioneer, but a testament to resilience in a segregated America, where African American performers had to navigate both artistic expression and systemic discrimination. Fountain's death reflected the challenges and values of the civil rights era, during which gospel music served as both a spiritual balm and a tool of resistance. Emerging in the 1940s, and rising to prominence through the decades, the Blind Boys of Alabama sang with a passion that transcended their physical limitations and social constraints. Their music inspired audiences beyond the church, becoming a soundtrack for hope and determination. The immediate aftermath of Fountain's death was met with tributes from across the music world, particularly from artists influenced by gospel, soul, and rhythm and blues. His passing symbolized the loss of a generation of artists who had lived through Jim Crow and used music to uplift and unite. Although his death did not cause political upheaval or shift national trajectories, it served as a powerful cultural reminder of the role that spiritual music played in America's long and unfinished journey toward justice and equality. Fountain's legend was amplified in death by the recognition of his life's work, a career that spanned more than 70 years, including Grammy wins and performances for presidents. His story, and that of the Blind Boys, is preserved not only through recordings but also in documentaries, tributes at gospel festivals, and educational programs that trace the roots of American music. In reflecting on Fountain's death, we are reminded of humanity's deep connection to art as both expression and legacy. Mortality often crystallizes greatness, pushing us to preserve and elevate what might have once been taken for granted. We immortalize figures like Clarence Fountain, not just in accolades, but in the enduring spirit of their music. Through their voices, history sings, and the echoes of those songs continue to shape how we remember, resist, and rejoice. William Russell, the esteemed American actor best known for his role as a founding cast member of Doctor Who, passed away on June 3, 2022, at the remarkable age of 96. His death was natural, a peaceful departure that reflected the quiet dignity of a career spent not in the bombastic spotlight, but in steady, meaningful contribution to British and American stage and screen. Russell's passing did not cause global upheaval, yet it marked the end of a living link to the origins of one of the most enduring science fiction series in television history. Cast as Ian Chesterton in Doctor Who in 1963, Russell was part of a revolutionary era in British television, a time when post-war optimism met Cold War anxieties, and stories of time travel, alien civilizations, and moral dilemmas offered both escapism and subtle social commentary. The 1960s were an age when science fiction began to grapple with humanistic themes, and Russell's character, a rational and courageous schoolteacher, grounded the fantastical elements of the show in a relatable moral compass. His portrayal reflected a time when education, rationalism, and bravery were held as cultural ideals, and the show itself became a mirror to the values and fears of the era. The immediate response to Russell's death was a wave of nostalgic tributes from fans, actors, and producers who recognized his foundational role in a cultural juggernaut. While he may not have remained in the public eye throughout his later years, his death reawakened appreciation for Doctor Who's early years and the pioneering actors who helped launch its legacy. Russell's passing invites reflection on how we remember and honor those who quietly shaped our cultural consciousness. His legacy, like many from early television history, is preserved through archival footage, documentaries, and the devoted memories of fan communities. These acts of commemoration, through conventions, retrospectives, and character revivals, demonstrate how art continues to bridge generational gaps, keeping memory alive. Ultimately, the death of William Russell reminds us that while fame may flicker, influence endures. In remembering such figures, we confront the gentle truth of mortality and the powerful role memory plays in shaping cultural continuity. Through storytelling, whether on screen or in tribute, we grant them a kind of immortality, anchored not in spotlight, but in the hearts of those they moved. James Arness, the towering actor best known for his role as U.S. Marshal Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke, died of natural causes on June 3, 2011, at the age of 88 in Los Angeles, California. His death marked the end of an era in American television, as Arness was not just a star, but a symbol of a cultural ideal, the stoic, principled Western hero. Arness's death reflected the quiet dignity with which he lived his post-Hollywood years. Having become a household name in the 1950s and 60s, he embodied the values of mid-20th century America: rugged individualism, moral clarity, and a sense of justice rooted in personal responsibility. These were ideals that resonated in a post-World War II society seeking stability and clear role models during the tumultuous Cold War years. As Marshall Dillon, Arness offered viewers a consistent moral center amidst shifting political and social landscapes. The immediate aftermath of Arness's passing was marked by a wave of tributes from fans and colleagues alike, especially those who had grown up with Gunsmoke as a staple of their weekly routine. The show had run for 20 seasons, one of the longest-running primetime dramas in U.S. history, and helped shape television's golden age. His death did not shift history's course in the conventional sense, but it did draw attention to the fading legacy of the classic Western, a genre that had once dominated American storytelling. Arness's legend was amplified not through scandal or sensationalism, but through steadfastness. Rarely giving interviews and avoiding Hollywood's social scene, he became a cultural fixture not by force of personality, but by the integrity of his characters and the quiet consistency of his performances. In an age of increasing celebrity spectacle, Arness remained an exception, a reminder of a time when fame was rooted in character rather than controversy. In remembering James Arness, we glimpse how humanity seeks to enshrine its heroes, not just through awards or reruns, but through the values they came to represent. Statues, retrospectives, and streaming archives now preserve his image, but the deeper memorial lies in the idea of the American cowboy: gritty, fair, and unflinchingly honest. His passing invites reflection on how we measure greatness, not by the volume of noise one makes, but by the steadiness with which one holds the line. Jack Kevorkian, often dubbed Dr. Death, died of natural causes on June 3, 2011 at the age of 83 in a Michigan hospital. He succumbed to complications from liver and kidney problems, conditions that had plagued him in his later years. The manner of his death, natural and in a hospital setting, stood in stark contrast to the controversial life he had led advocating for physician-assisted suicide. For a man who had helped over 100 terminally ill patients end their lives on their own terms, dying in the conventional way was both ironic and revealing of the larger battle over death, dignity, and autonomy that defined his legacy. Kevorkian came to national attention in the 1990s, when his defiance of legal and medical norms surrounding euthanasia sparked intense ethical debate. He challenged the medical establishment and legal system, arguing that terminal patients had the right to die with dignity. His actions, many captured on videotape and broadcast on national television, provoked widespread discussion about the morality of life-ending medical assistance and led to his imprisonment in 1999 after administering a lethal injection on camera. His death did not dramatically shift historical trajectories, but it reignited conversations about end-of-life care, autonomy, and the role of physicians in managing death. Kevorkian's passing reminded the public of unresolved issues in healthcare ethics, especially in an aging society where chronic illness and suffering are prevalent. His name became synonymous not just with controversy, but with the uncomfortable confrontation between modern medicine's ability to prolong life and the human desire for a peaceful, dignified end. In death, Kevorkian's legend was paradoxically both amplified and softened. Tributes and critiques poured in, reflecting the polarization he had provoked. Some hailed him as a pioneer of compassion. Others condemned his methods as dangerous and unethical. Over time, however, his role as a catalyst for dialogue has become more appreciated, especially as legislation around assisted dying has advanced in various states and countries. Kevorkian's legacy lives on in film, biography, and medical ethics courses. He is commemorated not with statues or national holidays, but through the ongoing debate he helped bring into the public eye. His story reveals how society grapples with mortality not only as a biological endpoint, but as a deeply personal, political, and philosophical challenge, one that reflects our most fundamental values about life, autonomy, and the right to choose one's end. Koko Taylor, known as the Queen of the Blues, died of natural causes on June 3, 2009 at the age of 80. Her death marked the end of an era for Chicago blues, a genre she helped define with her powerful, raw vocal style and commanding stage presence. Taylor's passing reflected both the challenges of aging musicians and the enduring values of the blues tradition, a genre rooted in resilience, emotional honesty, and the lived experiences of African American communities. Taylor's death was a natural one, occurring after a lifetime of touring, recording, and performing in an often grueling music industry that historically offered little support for artists, especially Black women. She had suffered a stroke in 2006, but continued to inspire fans with her indomitable spirit until her final days. Her passing highlighted the era's struggles with healthcare and the physical toll that a life of relentless artistry can take, especially for musicians who often worked long into their later years. The immediate consequences of Taylor's death were felt deeply in the blues community and beyond. Tributes poured in from fellow musicians, fans, and cultural institutions, acknowledging her as a vital link in the lineage of American music. Her death amplified her legend, as posthumous recognition often does, cementing her role as a pioneering female voice in a male-dominated genre. In many ways, Taylor's legacy helped shift broader cultural awareness toward the contributions of women in blues and the importance of preserving this distinctly American art form. Taylor's death also underscored the bittersweet reality of mortality, how artists who sing about life's hardships eventually face their own final chapter. Yet, through her recordings, live performances, and awards, including a Grammy, she achieved a form of immortality. She is remembered not only in music halls, but in the narratives of cultural perseverance and expression. Humankind's way of immortalizing figures like Koko Taylor, through art, biography, and commemoration, speaks to a deep desire to connect with the stories of those who give voice to collective emotions. By celebrating her life in music, we affirm the enduring power of blues to convey humanity's struggles with mortality, pain, and hope, ensuring that her spirit continues to resonate for generations to come. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini's death on June 3, 1989, was a pivotal moment in modern Iranian and global history. Khomeini died of natural causes, complications related to heart disease, at the age of 86. His death marked the end of a controversial and transformative era defined by his role as the architect of the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which overthrew the pro-Western Shah and established the Islamic Republic of Iran. The circumstances of his passing reflected both the fragility of mortal life and the enduring power of ideological leadership in an era fraught with Cold War tensions, religious political upheaval, and regional conflict. Khomeini's death came after nearly a decade of exerting near-absolute influence over Iran's theocratic government. Despite his declining health, he remained a symbol of unwavering resistance to Western influence and a champion of Islamic governance. His passing revealed the challenge of sustaining revolutionary zeal beyond the life of a charismatic leader. The transition of power posed immediate questions about the future trajectory of Iran, whether the rigid ideological regime he established could adapt or would ossify. The immediate consequence of Khomeini's death was a massive outpouring of grief in Iran, where millions mourned the supreme leader. His funeral drew millions, a spectacle that underscored his monumental influence, but also highlighted deep divisions within Iranian society between reformists and hardliners vying for control. Internationally, his death sparked uncertainty about Iran's policies and its role in the Middle East, as Western powers and regional actors recalibrated their strategies in the absence of his singular authority. Khomeini's death amplified his legend, transforming him into a near-mythic figure for supporters who viewed him as a spiritual guide and defender of Islamic values against Western imperialism. Simultaneously, critics remembered him as a harsh autocrat whose regime suppressed dissent and curtailed freedoms. His passing thus intensified debates about power, ideology, and the cost of revolutionary change. This event reveals humanity's complex relationship with mortality and power, how leaders become larger than life, and how their deaths trigger both collective mourning and political uncertainty. We immortalize figures like Khomeini through religious symbolism, political rhetoric, literature, and public commemoration, embedding their legacies within cultural memory. Through these acts, societies negotiate the tension between honoring the past and confronting the future, illustrating how death is both an end and a catalyst for ongoing historical narratives. Pope John XXIII, born Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli, died on June 3, 1963, from natural causes linked to stomach cancer. His death marked the end of a brief but transformative papacy, one deeply reflective of the turbulent social and religious shifts of the early 1960s. At 81, John XXIII's passing was not sudden, but came after months of declining health, and it resonated profoundly with Catholics worldwide during a time when the Catholic Church was navigating modernity's challenges. John XXIII's era was defined by a church seeking relevance amid rapid global changes. Post-World War II reconstruction, the Cold War tensions, and burgeoning calls for social justice and ecumenism. His decision to convene the Second Vatican Council in 1962 signaled a bold move toward aggiornamento, or bringing up to date, aimed at modernizing the Church's practices and opening dialogue with the wider world. His death, therefore, symbolized a poignant moment between tradition and renewal as the Church awaited the Council's continuation under his successor. The immediate consequence of John XXIII's passing was a worldwide outpouring of mourning, highlighting his reputation as a warm, pastoral pope, affectionately nicknamed Good Pope John. His death generated a collective sense of loss, but also hope, as the reforms he initiated promised a new era for Catholicism. The conclave that followed elected Pope Paul VI, who would carry forward the Vatican II reforms, confirming that John XXIII's legacy extended far beyond his lifespan. John XXIII's death amplified his legend as a humble, compassionate leader who courageously guided the Church through a critical period. Unlike pontiffs whose deaths triggered political intrigue or crisis, his passing reflected an era's aspiration for renewal and openness. The way he is remembered, through art, writings, and the canonization as a saint, underscores humanity's desire to preserve figures who embody both spiritual authority and approachable humanity. This commemoration reveals much about mortality and power, how religious figures, through their deaths, become symbols of continuity amid change, reminding us that memory and faith intertwine to sustain communities. Through statues, portraits, hymns, and liturgy, John XXIII's legacy endures, illustrating how death can elevate a leader's influence and inspire generations beyond their earthly life. On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Clarence Williams III, a commanding presence in both film and television, passed away on June 4, 2021, at the age of 81 from colon cancer. His death was a natural one, yet it underscored a broader conversation about the erasure and resurgence of Black actors who shaped American media across decades. Known for his intensity, range, and iconic role as Link Hayes in the 1960s series The Mod Squad, Williams symbolized a new era of television that began to reflect the complexity of America's racial landscape. Williams rose to fame during the Civil Rights era, portraying characters that defied stereotypes and embodied dignity and depth. His death, while not sudden, stirred a quiet reverence among fans and peers who recognized him as a trailblazer. At a time when Black actors often faced typecasting or limited visibility, Williams brought nuance and gravitas to every performance, whether in socially conscious dramas or stylized genre films. The immediate consequences of his passing were subtle but meaningful. Reflections in film retrospectives, tributes from fellow actors, and a renewed appreciation for his groundbreaking work. Though not a household name to all, within Hollywood and Black artistic communities, his influence was deeply felt. His death did not so much shift the trajectory of history as it reminded the world of the layered contributions of artists often overlooked in mainstream narratives. Williams's death did, in many ways, amplify his legend. In revisiting his work, such as his haunting performance in Tales from the Hood, or his role as Prince's father in Purple Rain, audiences rediscovered his ability to channel pain, strength, and complexity. His characters often mirrored the struggles of a generation fighting for identity and justice, offering insight into the era's social challenges. In contemplating Clarence Williams III's passing, we glimpse the universal truths of mortality and legacy. His career reflects the quiet power of persistence in a system often slow to change. Humanity's need to remember is evident in how we immortalize figures like him, through re-watching old episodes, teaching new generations about cultural pioneers, and celebrating their contributions in halls of fame and historical anthologies. Williams's legacy endures not in loud fanfare, but in the subtle, steady influence he had on the evolution of representation in American storytelling. Joan Vos, an American actress and former model, passed away on June 4, 2001 from heart failure at the age of 73. Her death, while natural and quiet, marked the passing of a figure emblematic of Hollywood's mid-century elegance, an era shaped by beauty, poise, and the studio system's golden touch. Though she never reached the star status of her contemporaries, Vos's career spanned film, television, and stage, offering a glimpse into the transitional period between classic and modern Hollywood. Vos began as a model for the Conover Agency and a dancer with the Rockettes before entering the film industry in the early 1950s. Her work with MGM and appearances in films like The Affairs of Dobie Gillis reflected the lighthearted and sometimes sanitized values of post-war America. Her image was consistent with the expectations of the era, demure, graceful, and inoffensive, a product of a time when women in Hollywood were often celebrated more for charm than agency. Her death did not cause global headlines, but it served as a quiet reminder of the many performers who helped build the entertainment industry's foundation. In the wake of her passing, film historians and fans of classic cinema revisited her performances, often overshadowed by larger stars, yet still vital in painting the full picture of American screen history. Joan Vos's passing symbolizes how fame can be fleeting, but contribution endures. Unlike the violent or politically charged deaths of more prominent historical figures, her departure was not a catalyst for change, but rather an invitation to remember the roles played by supporting artists, those who lent grace and professionalism to the projects they touched. In reflecting on her death, we're reminded that mortality equalizes all, regardless of fame. Yet our memory of individuals often depends not solely on their impact, but on the narratives we choose to preserve. Through Turner Classic Movies broadcasts, film archives, and fan retrospectives, Joan Vos is subtly immortalized. She exists within a collective cultural memory that values nostalgia, classicism, and the enduring charm of an era long gone. Her life and death ask us to consider how we value those who support rather than lead, and how memory can be shaped as much by affection as by acclaim. Through that lens, Vos remains quietly timeless. Georgin Johnson, a prolific character actress whose career spanned over 5 decades in television, film, and theater, died of natural causes on June 4, 2018, at the age of 91. Her passing marked the quiet close of a life devoted to performance, with her legacy embedded more subtly in the cultural fabric than in headlines. Known for her warm screen presence and versatility, Johnson reflected a generation of actresses who thrived within the ensemble-driven, character-rich storytelling of mid-20th century American entertainment. Johnson was perhaps best known for roles on popular TV shows like The Trials of Rosie O'Neill, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and appearances on Seinfeld and Jag. She also had a noteworthy role as the mother in Midnight Cowboy and performed on Broadway, working with figures like Henry Fonda. Her career reflected the evolving opportunities for women in the industry, beginning during the post-war boom in live television and continuing through the rise of feminist consciousness in the 1970s and beyond. Her death, peaceful and private, stands in contrast to the dramatic exits often associated with Hollywood legends. Yet, it is precisely this lack of spectacle that illuminates an important truth. The contributions of character actors are often enduring, even if not loudly celebrated. Johnson's passing drew quiet tributes from peers and fans, but did not significantly shift cultural or historical discourse. Still, it did remind audiences of the value of steadfast artistry and the subtle power of supporting roles in shaping narratives. Georgin Johnson's legacy is preserved not in monuments or sweeping tributes, but in the continuity of craft. Her death invites reflection on how memory is built, not just through fame, but through accumulated moments of truth on stage and screen. In an era obsessed with celebrity, Johnson's enduring influence is a testament to quiet professionalism and emotional authenticity. Humanity's relationship with mortality, as seen through figures like Johnson, reveals an instinct to find meaning in every contribution, large or small. We commemorate such figures through reruns, theater programs, and fan discussions, anchoring them in our shared cultural memory. Georgin Johnson may not have been a household name, but through decades of heartfelt performance, she became a familiar, comforting presence, immortalized in the roles that quietly defined an era. Sonny Tufts, a once prominent Hollywood actor of the 1940s, died on June 4, 1970, from natural causes related to alcohol-related health complications. Though not a household name today, Tufts' life and death reflected both the fleeting nature of fame and the challenges faced by actors navigating the shifting landscape of post-war Hollywood. Tufts rose to prominence during World War II when many leading men were off fighting overseas. With his tall stature, Ivy League background, and rugged charm, he quickly filled a void in romantic and heroic roles, starring in films like So Proudly We Hail and The Virginian. However, as the war ended and the film industry began to evolve, Tufts' career declined. His struggle with alcoholism became public, and his increasingly erratic behavior often overshadowed his earlier accomplishments. His death in 1970 at age 58 came quietly, without the media spectacle that often accompanies the passing of major stars. Yet in its own way, his decline and eventual death were emblematic of a broader issue within the entertainment industry: how actors, especially those typecast or pushed into the spotlight under unique circumstances, often struggled with identity and relevance once the spotlight faded. The pressure to maintain a public image, coupled with limited roles and personal demons, frequently led to troubled lives off-screen. The immediate aftermath of Tufts's passing saw little in the way of public mourning or retrospectives, highlighting how quickly Hollywood can move on from those who once lit up the screen. Yet his story serves as a cautionary tale about the costs of fame and the era's limited support systems for those who fell from grace. In the broader scope of history, Tufts' legacy is one of quiet impact. His films remain part of the Golden Age canon, and his life story has become a footnote in discussions about celebrity culture and the volatility of stardom. We remember figures like Sonny Tufts through archived films, studio histories, and the occasional pop culture reference, underscoring how memory often favors the dramatic, yet makes space for the faded. His death reminds us that mortality strips away fame's glitter, leaving behind the human story. In remembering Sonny Tufts, we confront how culture immortalizes some through myth, others through quiet remembrance, and all through the shared art they leave behind. Jack Gilford, a beloved American character actor known for his work in theater, film, and television, died of stomach cancer on June 4, 1990, at the age of 81. His death was natural, yet it marked the end of an era shaped by political resilience, creative expression, and a deep moral conscience. Gilford's life and passing embody the intersection of entertainment, activism, and the struggle for artistic integrity during some of America's most turbulent decades. Gilford was not just a performer, he was a principled man who stood firm against injustice. In the 1950s, during the height of the Red Scare, he and his wife, Madeleine Lee, were blacklisted by the House Un-American Activities Committee for their alleged communist ties. This period saw many artists silenced, careers destroyed, and lives upended by mere suspicion, an era where political fear often outweighed truth. Gilford's refusal to capitulate to fear underscored the values of free expression and resistance against authoritarian pressure. When he passed away in 1990, it was in a vastly different America, one that had by then largely condemned the McCarthyist tactics that once sidelined him. Yet Gilford never regained the full breadth of opportunities denied to him during his peak. His death served as a poignant reminder of the long-term consequences of political persecution, even in a country that prides itself on liberty. Though his death did not shake the world in the way a president's assassination might, it prompted a quiet reverence among fellow performers and political thinkers. He was remembered not only for his warm comic timing in films like Cocoon and A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, but also for his courage in the face of ideological oppression. His passing underscored a generational shift, from the idealism and fear of the mid-20th century to a more reflective era that valued both art and accountability. Today, Gilford is immortalized through his enduring performances and his inclusion in the broader narrative of Hollywood's blacklist survivors. His story is retold in documentaries, books, and retrospectives that aim to preserve the memory of those who stood up for their beliefs. In this way, Jack Gilford's death not only closed a chapter, but helped frame a lesson. That integrity in art and life often outlives the institutions that try to suppress it. Stephen McNally, a versatile American actor best known for his portrayals of tough, often morally conflicted characters in mid-20th century film noir and westerns, died on June 4, 1994, of natural causes at the age of 82. His passing marked the quiet end of a career that flourished during Hollywood's golden age, a time when cinema shaped American identity, masculinity, and morality on the screen. McNally's death may not have triggered national mourning, but it invited reflection on an era where character actors played indispensable roles in shaping cinematic storytelling. Born Horace Vincent McNally, he began his career as a practicing lawyer before transitioning into acting in the 1940s. As he carved out a niche in noir classics like Criss Cross, 1949, and westerns such as Winchester 73, 1950, McNally often embodied the gray zone between hero and villain, a reflection of post-World War II America's evolving moral compass. The rise of anti-heroes in film mirrored societal tensions, disillusionment after war, the rise of Cold War paranoia, and shifting ideals around justice and power. McNally's characters, often tormented or duplicitous, captured the complexity of that time. His death in the mid-1990s came during a period of renewed interest in classic Hollywood, as film historians and cinephiles sought to preserve the legacy of the studio era. While his name was not as widely recognized as his contemporaries, McNally's passing reminded audiences of the foundational layers of cinema, the actors who carried narratives with quiet intensity, often without fanfare. There were no grand public spectacles surrounding his death, but there was an undercurrent of appreciation within film circles for his contributions to a transformative period in American storytelling. The way we remember Stephen McNally speaks volumes about how we process memory and celebrity. In the grand theater of history, not all performers are spotlighted equally, yet their influence lingers in the roles they played and the genres they helped define. McNally is commemorated through film retrospectives, genre studies, and the enduring presence of noir and Western archetypes that still echo in modern cinema. His death, like many in his profession, draws attention to the quieter corridors of cultural legacy, where art endures beyond fame and where memory finds form not in monuments, but in the flicker of film reels and the stories they continue to tell. Herb Reed, the founding member and last surviving original voice of the Platters, died of natural causes on June 4, 2012, at the age of 83 in Boston. His death marked the end of a vocal legacy that helped define American rhythm and blues and early rock and roll in the mid-20th century. Reed, a bass vocalist, was instrumental in shaping the smooth, romantic sound that made the Platters a global sensation with hits like Only You, The Great Pretender, and Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. Reed's passing was quiet, but symbolically powerful. It reflected the fading of a golden age in American music, a time when harmony groups gave voice to dreams, heartbreaks, and hopes in a rapidly changing post-war society. His era was one of burgeoning civil rights awareness, cultural integration, and the rise of African American performers in mainstream popular music. The Platters, one of the first black groups to gain acceptance with both black and white audiences, were trailblazers, and Reed's deep voice carried not just melody, but cultural significance. Though not violent or controversial, Reed's death reminded the world of the fragility of legacy in an industry often quick to forget its pioneers. In the immediate aftermath, tributes from fans and musicians poured in, recognizing his contribution not only to music, but to the broader cultural shifts of the 1950s and 60s. Reed had spent his later years defending the integrity of the Platters' name from unauthorized groups, showing his deep commitment to preserving history and authenticity. Reed's death did not shift the course of history in dramatic fashion, but it closed the chapter on one of America's first crossover music phenomena. His voice lives on in recordings that continue to echo through generations, embodying the elegance and passion of a bygone musical era. The way Herb Reed is remembered, through tribute concerts, archival footage, and the enduring presence of the Platters in oldies playlists, highlights humanity's need to commemorate voices that gave meaning to shared emotion. Through music, we immortalize figures like Reed not just for their fame, but for their ability to touch the universal longing for love, recognition, and harmony. His passing serves as a reminder that while mortality is certain, legacy, when nurtured with care and truth, can sing on forever. Sotiris Moustakas, the beloved Cypriot Greek actor known for his sharp comedic timing and magnetic stage presence, passed away on June 4, 2007, at the age of 66. His death, the result of complications from cancer, occurred shortly after he had been hospitalized with pneumonia. Moustakas' passing marked the end of an era for Greek theater and film, where his unique ability to blend humor with heartfelt emotion had made him a household name. His death, though natural, came at a time when Greek cultural identity was undergoing a transformation. As globalization increasingly influenced regional media, Moustakas stood as a cherished relic of a more intimate, locally rooted entertainment era, one that had celebrated wit, satire, and resilience amid political upheavals. Having lived through the turbulence of Cyprus's division and Greece's shifting post-war political landscape, Moustakas often embodied characters that were humorous yet tragic, playful yet philosophical, reflecting the survivalist humor of Mediterranean life. The immediate aftermath of his death was a national outpouring of grief. Tributes poured in from across the Greek-speaking world, including from political leaders, artists, and fans who had grown up with his work. Moustakas' role in international productions like Zorba the Greek also extended his reach, linking Greek cultural narratives to broader global audiences. His passing didn't merely sadden, it reminded a generation of a form of storytelling deeply connected to their roots, and perhaps in danger of being forgotten. While his death did not alter the trajectory of world history, it did amplify his legend within Greek cultural memory. Moustakas became not just a comedian or actor, but a symbol of endurance through laughter. His roles often mocked authoritarianism, bureaucracy, and social pretense, core elements in a country that had weathered dictatorship and revolution. Moustakas is immortalized through the films, television shows, and stage plays he left behind. His likeness appears in Greek retrospectives, theater tributes, and academic discussions about the role of satire in resistance. His passing reminds us that mortality is not just an end, but a punctuation mark in a story that continues through memory and art. Humanity's need to remember figures like Moustakas is rooted in our longing to preserve the wit and wisdom that made hardship bearable and even laughable. Through his work, Sotiris Moustakas still brings light, reminding us that in humor there is resilience, and in remembrance there is life. Wilhelm II, the last German emperor and king of Prussia, died on June 4, 1941, in exile in the Netherlands. His death was natural, the result of a pulmonary embolism, and it came at a moment when the world was engulfed in the turmoil of World War II, a war shaped in part by the political consequences of his reign. By the time of his death, Wilhelm had been dethroned for over 2 decades, having abdicated in 1918 at the end of World War I. His quiet passing in Dorn, far from the throne he once held, mirrored the collapse of the imperial world order and the profound transformations of the early 20th century. Wilhelm's fall from power marked the end of the Hohenzollern monarchy and reflected the broader decline of European monarchies following the devastation of the First World War. His role in the war's origins remains debated, but his militarism, nationalism, and erratic diplomacy certainly helped fan the flames. The values of his era, imperial pride, military dominance, and divine right, were starkly undermined by the horrors of trench warfare and the political revolutions that followed. His death, occurring as Hitler's Nazi regime was at the height of its power, carried a bitter historical irony. The Kaiser had once embodied German might, only to be replaced by a darker, more radical force. The immediate consequences of Wilhelm's death were minimal in political terms. He had become a marginal figure, largely forgotten or dismissed by the Nazi leadership. However, His death did spark reflection among monarchists and historians, who debated his legacy and the path Germany had taken after his abdication. His passing did not so much shift the course of history as underscore how far Europe had moved from the imperial past. Wilhelm II's legacy is complex, viewed by some as a symbol of doomed arrogance and by others as a tragic figure overwhelmed by modern forces he could not control. His image has appeared in documentaries, literature, and scholarly works, often as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and nationalistic fervor. In death, Wilhelm II reminds us that leaders, no matter how grand their titles, are not immune to the tides of change. Humanity's need to remember such figures, whether to revere, condemn, or understand them, reflects our deep connection to the forces that shape history. We immortalize them to learn, to warn, and sometimes to forgive. On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Ronald Reagan, the 40th President of the United States, died of natural causes on June 5, 2004, at the age of 93, after a decade-long battle with Alzheimer's disease. His death marked the end of a chapter in American political life that was defined by conservative resurgence, Cold War brinkmanship, and charismatic leadership. While Reagan had largely withdrawn from public view following his diagnosis in 1994, the announcement of his death brought a wave of public mourning and political reflection across the United States and around the world. The circumstances of Reagan's passing were quiet and personal, a stark contrast to the public grandeur of his political life. His struggle with Alzheimer's humanized a figure who had often been elevated as a symbol of strength and optimism. In an era increasingly defined by medical transparency and aging populations, Reagan's decline mirrored a growing societal awareness of neurodegenerative diseases and the challenges of dignity in aging. Nancy Reagan's advocacy for stem cell research following his death further highlighted the cultural shift toward confronting illness publicly and compassionately. The immediate consequences of Reagan's passing were both ceremonial and symbolic. A state funeral, the first for a U.S. president in over 3 decades, brought together world leaders and Americans of all political stripes. The pageantry and solemnity of the proceedings underscored Reagan's status as a transformative leader. His legacy, revered by many conservatives as the embodiment of American strength and derided by critics for widening social inequality, was re-examined in speeches, news retrospectives, and public tributes. Reagan's death amplified his legend, particularly among those who viewed him as the architect of the end of the Cold War and the champion of free market ideals. Statues, libraries, and airports bear his name, and his presidency remains a touchstone in modern political discourse. His cinematic past also contributes to his mythos, blurring the line between celebrity and statesmanship. Reagan's departure invites reflection on mortality as the great equalizer. Even the most powerful are ultimately subject to time and decline. Yet through remembrance, humanity elevates memory into legacy. In the case of Ronald Reagan, the blending of public service and personal courage has ensured his continued presence in America's cultural and political imagination, a testament to the enduring power of narrative in shaping how we remember. Conway Twitty, born Harold Lloyd Jenkins, died on June 5, 1993 at the age of 59 due to an abdominal aortic aneurysm. His death, though natural, was sudden and unexpected, occurring after he fell ill while performing in Missouri. He was rushed to the hospital, underwent surgery, but did not survive. The quiet nature of his passing contrasted sharply with the bold, passionate voice that had captivated country and rock and roll audiences for decades. Twitty's death marked the loss of a musical bridge between two powerful American genres, country and rock. In the 1950s, he emerged as a rockabilly star with hits like "It's Only Make Believe," later transforming into one of country music's most beloved voices with chart-topping duets alongside Loretta Lynn and a string of solo successes. His seamless shift between genres reflected the evolving tastes and cultural landscape of mid-20th century America, a time when traditional values clashed and mingled with modern sensibilities. His lyrics often spoke of heartbreak, longing, and moral tension, echoing the emotional undercurrents of a rapidly changing society. The immediate impact of Twitty's passing was profound in the country music world. Fellow musicians paid tribute to his influence, and fans mourned the loss of a man whose voice had defined a generation. His death also sparked legal disputes over his estate, highlighting the often complex intersection of fame, legacy, and family, an issue that persists in celebrity culture. Twitty's legacy has only grown since his passing. He is remembered not only for his staggering 55 #1 hits, but also for how he brought sensitivity and soul to a genre often defined by stoicism. His signature sound, smooth yet emotionally raw, continues to influence modern artists, and his life has been commemorated through documentaries, tribute albums, and exhibits in country music museums. In remembering Conway Twitty, we are reminded of how deeply music intertwines with memory and identity. Death may have silenced the man, but the melodies endure, testaments to a life lived in tune with the hearts of millions. His story reflects how fame, like mortality, is fleeting, but through art and remembrance, the human voice can echo forever across time. Robert Hansen, a former FBI agent turned Soviet and later Russian spy, died on June 5, 2023, of natural causes while serving a life sentence at the ADX Florence Supermax prison in Colorado. Found unresponsive in his cell at the age of 79, his death marked the end of one of the most notorious espionage careers in American history. Unlike a dramatic execution or violent end, Hansen's quiet passing in prison reflected a stark reality of modern justice, the slow, isolated consequences of betrayal in a hyper-surveilled, bureaucratic age. Hansen's espionage activities, which spanned from 1979 to 2001, caused massive damage to U.S. national security. He sold thousands of classified documents to the Soviet and Russian intelligence services, compromising dozens of operations and exposing American agents, some of whom were executed as a result. His motives were complex, rooted in ideological disillusionment, personal pride, and financial gain. When he was finally caught in 2001 after a lengthy investigation, it sent shockwaves through the intelligence community, revealing vulnerabilities within the very institutions meant to protect national secrets. The immediate consequence of Hansen's arrest was a reckoning within the FBI. His betrayal led to increased internal security protocols and reforms in how counterintelligence threats were handled. His death, though not sudden or tragic in a conventional sense, served as a reminder of the long arc of justice and the enduring impact of hidden treachery. Unlike heroic or tragic historical figures, Hansen is not memorialized with reverence. Rather, he stands as a cautionary tale, immortalized in documentaries, books, and films not for his achievements, but for the deep sense of betrayal he represents. His story invites reflection on the dark side of loyalty and the price of unchecked ambition. Hansen's life and death reveal a modern truth about power and mortality. In an age where surveillance and secrecy coexist, even the most clandestine figures cannot escape eventual judgment. While his name does not inspire admiration, It continues to provoke important questions about trust, ideology, and the fragile balance between personal conviction and public duty. In remembering Robert Hansen, we do not celebrate a legacy. We examine a failure, one that continues to shape the ethics of intelligence and the responsibilities of power. Ray Bradbury, one of the most celebrated American authors of the 20th century, died on June 5, 2012 at the age of 91 in Los Angeles, California. His death was from natural causes after a long life devoted to storytelling, reflection, and the defense of intellectual freedom. Bradbury's passing did not come with the shock of violence or scandal, but rather with the quiet dignity of a man who had profoundly shaped literary culture and public imagination. Bradbury's work emerged during a time of rapid technological change, Cold War anxieties, and shifting societal values. His novels, especially Fahrenheit 451, warned of the dangers of censorship, conformity, and the erosion of critical thought. In this way, the nature of his death, peaceful and surrounded by decades of acclaim, reflected a life lived in stark contrast to the dystopias he imagined. He died in an age still grappling with the very issues he foresaw: the tension between technology and humanity, freedom and control, memory and oblivion. The immediate consequence of his passing was a wave of tributes across the literary world, from authors, educators, and readers alike. Bradbury had long been more than just a science fiction writer. He was a cultural conscience. His death reignited conversations about the relevance of his warnings in a digital age increasingly characterized by surveillance, screen addiction, and information control. Bradbury's death, rather than ending his influence, amplified it. Schools revisited his books, filmmakers discussed his impact, and his words echoed across social media and memorials. The legend of Ray Bradbury grew not from the drama of his final moments, but from the enduring truth of his vision. His passing reminds us that mortality need not diminish one's power. Bradbury lives on through the ideas he left behind: his fears of a world without books, his celebrations of imagination, and his insistence that stories shape who we are. We immortalize him through continued readings of the Martian Chronicles, performances of Something Wicked This Way Comes, and adaptations of his work in classrooms and media. In remembering Ray Bradbury, we confront not only the inevitability of death, but the enduring power of words to challenge, illuminate, and outlive their authors. His life and passing affirm that while human bodies fail, the truths they articulate, when honest and fearless, become timeless. Vito Scotti, an accomplished American character actor known for his versatility and longevity in film and television, died of natural causes on June 5, 1996, at the age of 78 in Los Angeles, California. Having spent decades portraying a wide array of ethnic roles in comedies and dramas alike, Scotti's quiet passing stood in contrast to the vibrancy of his on-screen personas. His death marked the end of a remarkable yet often underappreciated career that mirrored Hollywood's evolution and the cultural shifts of mid-20th century America. Scotti was active during an era when Hollywood often typecast actors based on appearance rather than heritage. Despite being of Italian descent, he was regularly cast as characters of various ethnic backgrounds: Mexican, Japanese, Indian, Arab, due to his expressive features and comic timing. His career reveals much about the industry's tendency to blur cultural authenticity for entertainment, especially during the 1950s through the 1970s. That he thrived within this system while also delivering heartfelt, memorable performances highlights both the limitations and opportunities of his time. The immediate aftermath of Scotti's death did not prompt widespread media coverage or public mourning, reflecting the often overlooked status of character actors in Hollywood's celebrity hierarchy. However, for those in the industry and dedicated fans of classic television, his passing was a reminder of the vital contributions such actors make to the richness of storytelling. From his recurring roles in shows like Gilligan's Island and Columbo, to appearances in films like The Godfather, albeit uncredited, Scotty's work helped define an era of American entertainment. While his death did not shift historical trajectories, it gently underscored the fading era of post-war television and film, a time when the medium was still finding its voice, often relying on adaptable performers like Scotty to bring color and energy to its stories. His legacy lives not in monumental achievements, but in the cumulative impact of countless roles that made audiences laugh, think, or simply believe in the world he helped create. Vito Scotti's death invites reflection on how we remember those who live in the margins of fame. We immortalize them not in statues or grand biographies, but in the continued enjoyment of their work, in reruns that keep their performances alive, and in the quiet acknowledgement that supporting players often carry the soul of the story. Ishka Bibble, born Merwin Bogue, was a comedic performer and cornet player best known for his work with Kay Kaiser's big band during the golden age of radio. He died of natural causes on June 5, 1994, at the age of 86, in Joshua Tree, California. His death marked the passing of a figure whose unique blend of comedy and music captured the lighthearted spirit of Depression-era and wartime America. Kabibble rose to prominence in the 1930s and 1940s as the zany sidekick in Kaiser's College of Musical Knowledge, a radio program that brought humor and swing music into American homes during some of the country's most turbulent years. His stage persona, goofy, lovable, and often nonsensical, provided much-needed escapism for audiences weary of economic hardship and global conflict. The name Ishka Bibble, drawn from a nonsense song, itself symbolized the era's appetite for humor that was absurd, carefree, and distant from grim realities. By the time of his death, Kabibble had long retreated from public life, having turned to real estate in the 1950s after the decline of big band music. His passing came quietly, reflective of a life that, though once prominently lived in the limelight, ended far from the showbiz spotlight. Yet, in his departure, there was a quiet echo of an entertainment era gone by, one where variety shows, radio comedy, and swing bands dominated American popular culture. The immediate consequences of his death were minimal in terms of national attention, but for those who remembered the golden age of radio, it was a poignant reminder of a fading generation. Ishka Bibble didn't shift the course of history, but his work represented an essential function of entertainment, to uplift and amuse during difficult times. His character's enduring image, complete with a trademark bowl haircut and whimsical expressions, continues to appear in retrospectives of the period. Kabibble's life and death prompt reflection on how humor serves as both a coping mechanism and cultural mirror. Through laughter, societies weather storms, and figures like Kabibble become vessels for collective relief. We remember them not through grand monuments, but through the joy they brought. Their legacy lives in the recordings that still crackle with life and the nostalgia of simpler, more joyful moments preserved in memory. Jeanette Nolan, an accomplished American actress renowned for her distinctive voice and commanding screen presence, died of natural causes on June 5, 1998, at the age of 86 in Los Angeles, California. Her passing marked the end of a remarkable career that spanned radio, film, and television, each medium reflecting the evolving landscape of 20th century entertainment. Nolan's death, though not shocking or tragic, reflected the quiet dignity with which many of Hollywood's early stars exited the stage. Her career began in the 1930s with radio dramas and stretched well into the 1990s with voice roles in animated films. Her most notable early appearance was in Orson Welles' 1948 adaptation of Macbeth, in which she played Lady Macbeth. Though the film was met with controversy and criticism, Her performance was notable for its intensity and theatrical style. Her longevity in an industry known for fleeting fame speaks to a professional resilience that mirrored broader mid-century American values: hard work, adaptability, and staying power. In an era that saw rapid technological and cultural shifts, from the golden age of radio to the rise of color television and animation, Nolan transitioned gracefully, embodying the generational versatility of performers who defined multiple entertainment epochs. While her death did not create a cultural shockwave, it did trigger reflection among film and television historians who recognized her as a foundational figure in American acting. She was a character actor, often supporting but always unforgettable, lending gravity and nuance to everything from westerns like Gunsmoke and The Virginian to her chilling voice work as the villainous Widow Tweed in Disney's The Fox and the Hound. Jeanette Nolan's death invites a broader contemplation of how we remember artists who weren't necessarily headline stars, but who built the scaffolding of our cultural memory. Unlike political icons or revolutionary thinkers, actors like Nolan are often immortalized through the characters they portrayed, their voices etched in the minds of generations. We remember Nolan through the enduring art she helped create. Her image flickers across classic movie channels, her voice lives on in animated classics, and her influence is quietly embedded in the legacy of American performance. In this way, her death affirms our human impulse to preserve memory not just through monuments, but through stories, told again and again in sound and screen. Astrud Gilberto, the iconic voice behind the global hit The Girl from Ipanema, passed away on June 5, 2023, at the age of 83 from natural causes. Her death marked the quiet end of a life that had once introduced the world to the soft, seductive rhythms of bossa nova, a genre born from Brazil's post-war cultural renaissance. Her passing was not only a loss to music, but a symbolic closing of a chapter in global musical history. Gilberto's rise to fame was as unexpected as it was transformative. Born in Brazil in 1940, she was largely unknown when she recorded The Girl from Ipanema in 1963. Her delicate, almost whispered vocals, sung in English, gave the song an international appeal that propelled both bossa nova and Gilberto herself into global stardom. This moment captured the values of a rapidly globalizing world, where cultural crossover became a defining feature of the 1960s. She was not just a singer, she became the symbol of a new, cosmopolitan sensibility. Her death in the 21st century reflected the quieter passing of many mid-century artists who shaped culture in lasting but subtle ways. Unlike the public spectacles surrounding the deaths of political leaders or revolutionaries, Gilberto's death was understated, echoing the tone of her music, gentle, introspective, and quietly powerful. Yet it prompted an outpouring of tributes from across the globe, a reminder of her enduring influence on jazz, pop, and world music. The consequences of her passing were less about shifting history and more about commemorating the fusion of cultures she helped pioneer. Her work, often overshadowed during her lifetime by male collaborators, has since been reappraised, particularly through a feminist lens, recognizing her as a trailblazer who brought Latin American music to the world stage. Astrud Gilberto's legacy lives on in the dreamy sway of bossa nova and the countless covers of her signature song. She is immortalized not only in recordings, but in the image of a soft, poetic voice that transcended borders. Her death reminds us that cultural icons often shape history not through dramatic gestures, but through the gentle persistence of beauty, something humanity continues to cherish and preserve through memory, tribute, and song. Alec John Such, best known as the founding bassist of the rock band Bon Jovi, died on June 5, 2022, at the age of 70 from natural causes. His passing marked the end of an era for fans of 1980s rock, particularly those who followed the meteoric rise of Bon Jovi from New Jersey club stages to global superstardom. While his death was not sudden or violent, it served as a poignant moment of reflection on a time when rock bands not only dominated airwaves, but also helped shape youth culture and identity. Such as life and death reflect the dynamic spirit of the 1980s, a decade of excess, ambition, and cultural transformation in music. As the original bassist for Bon Jovi, he was instrumental in assembling the core lineup, even introducing guitarist Richie Sambora to the group. Although he left the band in 1994, his early contributions laid the foundation for their global success, including hits like Livin' on a Prayer and You Give Love a Bad Name. His departure stemmed from the pressures of life on the road and changing interpersonal dynamics, common challenges in the rock world of the time. The announcement of his death prompted heartfelt tributes from his former bandmates and fans alike, underscoring his legacy within one of the most iconic rock bands of all time. While he may not have been the most publicly visible member of the group, his role in shaping its sound and identity was undeniable. His death didn't shift the trajectory of music history, but it did reignite appreciation for the often overlooked musicians who build the backbone of legendary acts. Alec John Such's passing invites a broader reflection on mortality in the world of rock and roll. As more artists from that golden era age, their deaths remind us not only of the fleeting nature of fame, but of the cultural revolutions they helped inspire. We remember figures like Such through tribute concerts, documentaries, and Hall of Fame inductions. He was in fact honored with Bon Jovi when the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018. In commemorating musicians like Alec John Such, we are reminded that legacies aren't always forged in solos or headlines. They often live quietly in the chords and friendships that launched movements and made memories. Mel Torme, affectionately known as the Velvet Fog for his smooth, jazz-inflected vocal style, died on June 5, 1999 at the age of 73 due to complications from a stroke he had suffered several years earlier. His death was natural, quiet, and dignified, mirroring the refined musical sophistication he brought to every stage and studio he graced. While not tragic in the conventional sense, Torme's passing marked the end of an era, one in which crooners, big bands, and jazz standards shaped the emotional soundtrack of mid-20th century America. Torme's career spanned over 6 decades, during which he transcended musical genres, writing over 250 songs and co-penning the timeless holiday classic, The Christmas Song. He thrived during a time when American popular music was undergoing major transitions, from big band swing to bebop and later to pop and rock. Torme remained true to jazz and traditional pop, embodying a reverence for musical artistry and vocal precision that contrasted with the emerging trends of showmanship and mass appeal. His death, though not a shock, stirred a wave of admiration from musicians, critics, and fans who appreciated the purity of his talent. Unlike the explosive cultural shifts following the deaths of Elvis Presley or John Lennon, Torme's passing acted more like a soft diminuendo, a reminder of a musical past rooted in elegance, emotion, and technical mastery. It reignited discussions about the lasting value of vocal jazz and the importance of preserving its legacy for future generations. The way we remember Mel Torme reveals much about how society venerates artists not only for their fame, but for their integrity. He is commemorated through continued airplay of his recordings, tributes by contemporary jazz musicians, and annual revivals of his holiday music. His life and death serve as a counterpoint to the fast-paced nature of modern celebrity culture, highlighting the quiet dignity that can accompany enduring artistry. In contemplating Torme's legacy, we confront broader truths about mortality and memory. Our cultural heroes, especially those who do not court spectacle, are often immortalized not in grand memorials, but in the gentle familiarity of a voice that once made the ordinary feel extraordinary. Through records, performances, and seasonal traditions, Mel Torme continues to sing, softly yet forever. On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Robert F. Kennedy, younger brother of President John F. Kennedy and a U.S. Senator from New York, was assassinated on June 5, 1968, at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. He had just delivered a victory speech after winning the California Democratic primary for the 1968 presidential election. As he exited through a kitchen pantry, he was shot multiple times by Sirhan Sirhan, a 24-year-old Palestinian immigrant. Kennedy died the following day from his wounds at the age of 42. Kennedy's violent death echoed the turbulence and volatility of the 1960s, a decade marked by civil rights struggles, anti-war protests, and political assassinations. His murder occurred just 5 years after his brother's assassination and only 2 months after the killing of civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. The shock was profound. RFK had emerged as a unifying figure in a deeply divided America, advocating for racial equality, economic justice, and an end to the Vietnam War. His campaign inspired hope, particularly among marginalized communities, and his death extinguished a rising tide of optimism for peaceful reform. The immediate consequences of Kennedy's assassination were both emotional and political. His death deepened public disillusionment with the American political system and accelerated the sense of national mourning and fragmentation. The Democratic Party, reeling from the loss of a charismatic leader, was forced to reorganize, ultimately nominating Hubert Humphrey, a less progressive figure whose campaign failed to galvanize Kennedy's diverse base of support. Richard Nixon's subsequent election marked a conservative shift in American politics, suggesting that Kennedy's death altered the course of U.S. history. Robert F. Kennedy's legacy was amplified by the tragedy of his premature death. He came to symbolize a lost potential, a leader who might have guided America through its most painful reckonings with grace and justice. His eloquence, moral conviction, and willingness to confront inequality are remembered through memorials, schools, and public programs bearing his name. His grave at Arlington National Cemetery rests beside his brother's, marked with simple dignity. Ultimately, Kennedy's death reminds us how mortality intersects with memory and myth. He is immortalized not only because of how he died, but because of what he represented: a vision of leadership grounded in empathy, courage, and compassion. Through film, biographies, and annual remembrances, Robert F. Kennedy continues to inspire those seeking a more just and humane society. Anne Bancroft, an acclaimed American actress best known for her powerful roles on stage and screen, passed away on June 6, 2005 in New York City from uterine cancer. Her death was natural, but it marked the quiet end of a vibrant artistic force whose career spanned 5 decades. Though she had remained largely out of the public spotlight in her later years, her passing reignited widespread appreciation for the depth and complexity she brought to her roles. Bancroft rose to prominence in an era when Hollywood was beginning to embrace more psychologically complex female characters. Her portrayal of Mrs. Robinson in The Graduate, 1967, became iconic, not just for its cultural shock value, but for its layered depiction of a woman caught between societal expectations and personal disillusionment. Her death reflected the passing of a generation of actresses who challenged conventional depictions of women in film, bringing intelligence, intensity, and autonomy to their performances during a time of sweeping change in American gender norms and cinematic storytelling. The immediate consequences of her death were a resurgence of tributes and retrospectives that highlighted her contributions to theater and film. Bancroft was not merely a symbol of Hollywood glamour. She was a respected and serious actress, winning an Academy Award, 2 Tony Awards, and 2 Emmy Awards. Her legacy was further shaped by her long and celebrated marriage to comedian Mel Brooks, which represented a rare, enduring Hollywood partnership marked by mutual admiration and artistic support. Though her passing did not shift the trajectory of global events, it reminded the world of the subtle power of performance to influence culture and emotion. Bancroft's characters often wrestled with identity, regret, and power, universal human experiences that transcend time. Her death added a final chapter to a body of work that continues to inspire actors and filmmakers seeking authenticity and emotional truth in storytelling. In reflecting on Anne Bancroft's legacy, we see how mortality accentuates the enduring power of memory and art. We commemorate such figures through the continued viewing of their work, scholarly analysis, and cultural references. Bancroft is immortalized not with monuments, but through the characters she portrayed, women of strength, vulnerability, and complexity, echoing our collective desire to find meaning in the human experience through performance. Dr. John, born Malcolm John Rebenak Jr., passed away on June 6, 2019, of a heart attack at the age of 77. His death, though natural, marked the end of a musical era that had bridged New Orleans' mystical roots with the rhythms of rock, blues, and funk. Known for his gravelly voice, flamboyant stage presence, and deep connection to the cultural soul of Louisiana, Dr. John's passing was a poignant moment in American music history. Dr. John rose to fame during the countercultural explosion of the late 1960s and early 1970s, embodying a spirit of rebellion, spiritualism, and regional pride. His music, heavily infused with voodoo mysticism, Creole rhythms, and jazz influences, reflected the complexities of the American South during a time of cultural upheaval and social change. His death occurred in a world that had become more corporatized and homogenized in its music, making his uniquely authentic and place-rooted artistry feel like a fading echo of a richer, more eclectic time. The immediate response to his passing included heartfelt tributes from musicians, fans, and institutions worldwide. The city of New Orleans, where his influence loomed large, mourned the loss of one of its most iconic sons. His funeral procession through the streets, complete with brass bands and second-line dancers, was both a celebration and a testament to his enduring legacy. His death amplified the mystique that had always surrounded him, casting him not just as a performer, but as a guardian of a cultural heritage. Dr. John's passing reminds us how certain figures are immortalized not solely by their fame, but by their embodiment of a people, a place, and a spirit. His music chronicled a uniquely American experience, one shaped by slavery, migration, resistance, and celebration, and his persona was a living bridge between folklore and performance. As with many cultural icons, his memory endures through his recordings, tributes, and the ongoing influence he has on new generations of musicians. Ultimately, Dr. John's death reveals humanity's yearning to connect with identity, roots, and the power of storytelling through art. We remember him not just for what he sang, but for what he represented. A timeless voice from the swamps of New Orleans whispering stories of magic, survival, and soul. Kimbo Slice, born Kevin Ferguson, died unexpectedly on June 6, 2016, from heart failure at the age of 42. His death, though natural, was sudden and jarring, reflective of the complex intersection of fame, physical strain, and the modern spectacle of combat sports. A former backyard brawler turned mixed martial artist and professional boxer, Slice's rise to fame mirrored the digital revolution, catapulted not by traditional media, but by viral videos that made him an internet sensation in the early 2000s. Slice's death occurred just days before a scheduled fight, underscoring the physical toll of combat sports and raising questions about the health and safety of fighters in high-risk environments. The autopsy revealed signs of congestive heart failure, compounded by a liver mass. His passing reflected broader concerns of the era: overtraining, inadequate medical oversight in some corners of the sport, and the often short-lived careers of athletes in physically punishing professions. Unlike the carefully curated stardom of past decades, Slice's fame was raw, immediate, and democratized, built from the ground up through YouTube and word of mouth, without the gatekeeping of traditional sports promoters. The immediate aftermath of his death was met with shock across the combat sports world and beyond. Though not a title holder in major MMA organizations, Kimbo Slice represented something deeper: the everyman who broke into elite fighting through sheer toughness and charisma. His passing prompted a wave of reflection about the nature of internet-born fame and the cost of living up to an image created by millions of viewers. In death, Kimbo Slice became more than a fighter. He became a symbol of an era that blurred the lines between entertainment, violence, and authenticity. His story, from homeless security guard to household name, resonated with a generation raised on digital grit rather than polished celebrity. He has been immortalized through documentaries, tributes from fighters and fans, and a digital legacy that continues to circulate widely online. His death reminds us that even the strongest bodies are vulnerable, and that fame, no matter how unconventional, does not shield one from mortality. Humanity has always grappled with how to remember its warriors, whether through statues or stories.